I am liberal on social issues and conservative on economic issues. This has become a trope for lots and lots of political public figures. Conservative on economic issues. Pray tell, what is there to conserve? The movement for years and years and years has been that wealth is being funneled to fewer and fewer people at the expense of more and more people. So there is no excuse for this. Tax the rich. There are a ton of economists, and I'm going to go into this in another blog, shall we say, a ton of economists of all shades who have said you need to tax the rich. And these economists are not pure Marxist socialists. Most of them are, shall we say, left capitalist economists. And it was interesting because I was looking at the failure, like Bernie and others say, that most Americans want a kind of national health service. Well, it has failed in a number of states, including some of the most liberal where it has been tried. And perhaps one of the reasons for the failure is that as the system is now, it would include an awful lot of taxes. And so people's support for it goes down because it involves more taxes. Well, a lot of this could be solved if you started taxing the rich. There are billions and billions and billions of untaxed income legally. And I will challenge those of you who will oppose what I'm saying and say, well, if you start raising taxes on the wealthy, they'll take their money elsewhere, which is a good indication of what your limitations are in terms of your belief in democracy. I think it's very, very revealing. I think that people have been beaten down to the point where it's just accepted that in order to keep the budget within balance, or at least keep the deficit within certain limits, that one has to constantly fight teachers and firefighters and God knows who else and say, well, no, you can't have too much. And at the same time, we're letting hedge fund managers and all other forms of very talented operators with money, some of us would say parasites, and no financial problems that occur will be solved until we start tapping into these massive gobs of wealth that go untaxed year after year after year. And so it's very hard, for example, for one state, as for example, just Vermont has tried, and I think in varying degrees, perhaps slightly Maine, Massachusetts, Colorado, Oregon, some of the more liberal states, and has not been able to work. That is Medicare for all within the state system, because it needs federal government assistance. Above all, just on the issue of National Health Service alone, I believe that everyone, and this is where some of you will disagree, no doubt, that everyone is entitled to free medical care, as well as, I would add, housing, food, clothing, and shelter. I think these are basic rights. They have not been treated so in the United States, and also to only a slightly lesser degree in Canada and in Europe. But taxing the wealthy year after year, not a single windfall tax, but taxing year after year. And I know I'm not an economist, but you don't have to be an economist to know which way the money is flowing. And I think that we need to work both as individual countries and working together with other countries to change the system. This does not mean reversing the capitalist system. It does mean that it's an attempt to civilize it. But I think that if most people really believe that we cannot operate other than within our current status quo, then I think it's fair to say, as a Ghanaian once said when I was arguing with him, or debating with him, I said, your democracy is a sham. And if you can't touch the economy, if people who represent us, Congress people, senators, members of parliament represent us and say, well, we can't do this because our investors are going to go away because of this, because of that. Well, then really it is true. Democracy is a sham because democracy has to include the economic aspect of life.